Chapter 22. I sat at my desk with my hand over my tummy, not hearing a word Mrs. Douglas was saying. Wave after wave of nausea hit me every time I thought about the day before. The words Mr. Yao said, the words the cops said. I tried to drown them out, but they kept coming back. Jason turned to me and said, "Hey, meet me at the auditorium during recess." I looked over at him. Sometimes I forgot how much he was the spitting image of his father. "Please," Jason said, "it's important." I was about to shake my head, but there was an urgency in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Did his dad tell him what happened? Was that why he needed to talk to me? So he could apologize? At recess, I walked over to the auditorium. Jason was already inside waiting for me. He smiled when he saw me come in. He was holding something behind his back. Dandelions, which he presented to me. "These are for you," he said, stretching out his arm. I stared at the flowers, so warm and bright, in my downcast hands. "You like them?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "Good," Jason said, relieved. "But what I really want is for your dad." "I know. I'm going to tell him. As soon as he gets back from his business trip, I'm going to tell him," Jason said. I nodded. Good for him for finally standing up to his dad. "I don't care what he says," Jason says. "He needs to know how much I like you." I stopped nodding. "Wait, what?" I asked. He grabbed my arms and looked into my eyes. "I like you, Mia," he said again. I shook my head. No. I didn't want to believe it myself. I was like, "How is this possible?" Jason rattled on a mile a minute. "But it's true. Whenever I'm around you, Mia, I get this tingly feeling." My insides twisted and turned. A slimy snake was zigzagging through me. The more Jason described, the more I squirmed. "This isn't happening," I said, squeezing my eyes shut. I could feel my breakfast at the base of my throat. "Oh, it's happening," he said, "and it's gonna be great." I turned to him. "Jason, I don't like you," I exploded. Jason looked like he'd been punched. But, you said you liked the flowers. You said you wanted to tell my dad." "I thought you were talking about your dad being a racist." Jason took a step back. "My dad's not racist," he said. "Yes, he is," I gasped to fill my lungs. "He's racist." "Shut up," Jason yelled. "No, you shut up." I looked at him hard. "I could never like you. Never. Not even if you were the last boy on earth. I'd rather like a rock." He turned and ran. I stood in the auditorium listening to the echo of my words, feeling a tiny bit mean, yet 100% relieved. Jason didn't come back to class after recess. When I asked, Mrs. Douglas said he wasn't feeling well and had to go home. Lupe immediately started poking me and asking me what happened, and when I finally told her, she wasn't even surprised. "It makes sense," she said. "I mean, you're both Chinese." How did that make sense? Just because we're both Chinese, we're supposed to like each other? What about the fact that he's evil and I'm not? "Maybe it's a good thing," Lupe said. "Maybe his dad will be nicer to your family from now on." I shook my head at her. The way I shot him down, there was no going nice after that. There was only going nuclear. Chapter 23. Hank was waiting for me at the motel when I got back from school. "What are you doing home so early?" I asked him. Usually he didn't get home until well past 6. The cops came around to the gas station. They started asking me questions, asking my employer, he said. "And?" I asked him. He stared into the tiny lines in the front desk wood. And my boss freaked out and fired me. I felt the floor beneath me open up and swallow me whole. What? But you didn't do anything wrong. Doesn't matter. The boss said it was bad for business having the cops poke around. Hank pulled out a crumpled $100 bill from his pocket and slid it across the desk. This here's my last paycheck, he said. I looked at the bill on the table. What are you gonna do? I asked him. He didn't say anything. He just gazed out the window at the leaves in the pool. Hank, I said loudly, you have to fight this. Hank shook his head. You don't get it, kid, he said. I've been fighting my whole life. I'm done. It's no use fighting. People are gonna be the way they're gonna be. After Hank went back to his room, I searched the kitchen for canned foods. If that was his last paycheck, he'd just given it to us. He was gonna need all the help he could get. I was in the middle of rummaging through our fridge when I heard a knock on the door. It was the security guard from the Topaz Inn 2 doors down, a Chinese guy about my parents' age, probably second or third generation, from the confident way he spoke English. Open up, I gotta talk to you, he hollered. I buzzed him in. Heard you guys got a little visit from the cops, he said. A sly grin stretched across his face. The Topaz Inn people did not like us, and we didn't like them. To say that we had a little rivalry was an understatement. Every day, they tried to undercut our prices. They had a bigger motel, so naturally they had more rooms, but we had a better location being the first motel on our block. You had to drive past us to get to the Topaz Inn, which drove them nuts. The Topaz people came up with all kinds of ridiculous tactics to get back at us, including one time when they had one of their people stand a few blocks up with a sign that said, "Don't stay at the Cala Vista, it's full of roaches, stay at the Topaz." Mr. Yao happened to be driving by that day. When he saw what they were doing, he went straight to Ralph's, bought a dozen eggs, and hurled them at the sign. So it was quite a shock to see the Topaz security guard standing here in our front lobby. What do you want? I asked him. Look, I know we've had our differences over the years, he said, but in light of what's happened, I've come to offer a truce. I stared at him. A truce. He nodded. What happened over here last night was a tragedy, he said. We were so upset when we heard about it. Really? I said. I would have thought they'd be celebrating. Really? He said. Now look, it's in neither of our interests if bad people stay at our hotels. It gives the area a terrible rep and business suffers. So why don't we do this? He pulled out a piece of paper. This here is a list of all the bad people we've checked in the last month, he said. I peered curiously at the list. I'm sure you have a few names of your own you'd like to add to it, he said. I did, starting with the drunk guy. So here's what we're going to do. You tell me the names of your bad people, and I'll tell you the names of our bad people. I'm going to show the list to the Lagoon Motel people and the other stores on our street, so we're all in on it. And if anybody from the list calls looking for a room, we'll tell them the same thing, no vacancy. How's that? I nodded. It sounded like a plan. I thought back to all the things that had happened these last few weeks. We could sure use some more safety around here. Alrighty then, he said. He took out his pen and I took out my dad's big ledger with all the customers' names and information. Ready? He asked. Ready, I said. He grinned, revealing a mouthful of very yellow teeth. Let's start with last month. Give me the names of all the black customers who have come through here in the last month, he said. I slammed the ledger shut. Get out, I said, pointing at the door. Hey, no need to get worked up, he said, holding his hands up. I'm just trying to help. Get out, I repeated. Suit yourself, he huffed as he walked out, stuffing his list into his pocket. But don't come crying to me when this place gets robbed again, which it will. Your assignment tonight is to read chapters 24 through 26. Stop at page 120. That scene with Jason that we just read together is one of my favorite scenes in this book. It's so hilarious to me when she's so shocked that he likes her. There's a couple other funny parts coming up that I like, but that one always cracks me up. So add to the discussion today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.